you go. We're going to do this DIY water pump. We're going to get a cylinder. Okay, if you zoom in here, see how these sides are a little squared off? There's these hard edges. You always want to take all of your sides all the way up to the maximum 64 sides, so it's as circular as possible. Let's make these around 30 by 30. Okay, you can make it as small as 25 or 20, but no bigger than 50. We all want them to be a little bit different, so whenever we put our water in a bucket and have two lines on the water and try to drain the water in a time test to see what kind of volume of water we can drain with these pumps for efficiency. That's the test that we're going to do for everyone's pump. So everyone's pump should be a little bit different. You should be thinking about the physics of the water and the size of the pump. We're going to use 5-volt motors for these. So do some thinking and use your best judgment about the physics of how water is going to spin, the tension on the water inside of this pump, and what you think will be the best one. But we're going to do ours, the basic one, at 30 by 30, and we'll make it 30 tall to just have it all nice and rounded out. Okay, the next thing that we're going to want to do is we're going to put threads at the top of this, because we're going to make a lid that we can take on and off so that we can make at least 2 turbine shapes for the inside of our pump, so that you can have 2 different data points to see what kind of what kind of efficiency you can achieve with different pump heads or turbines. So here's our threads. Okay, the diameter of the outside of that's 30, so I want to make this inside diameter. We'll make this at 30 as well, or close to it. Okay, 30.1, that'll work. Now, I'm going to leave the pitch right where it's at. This makes it go up and down, right? It actually makes the inside solid part thinner. So we can leave that at 1.5-ish if it was, whatever it's at. Maybe we'll step back. Okay, segments, I'm going to bump this all the way up. This is similar to the outside of the circle. We want that to be as round as possible. See, if I brought the segments down, right, it's like triangular. We don't want that. We want circles. Okay, the rotations, we're going to do 3. I think that'll give us plenty over the course of, for our lid. If it can screw down 3 times, it'll be fine. All right, the tip scale is, in regards to this point right here, right? So if I bump this up, it's squared off. We want that to have a nice sharp bite, so it'll cut into our threads, right? Thread scale is at 1. Leave it like that. So this right now is pretty golden. The outside is 30. Outside diameter is 30. We want to have 1.5 millimeters on this side and this side all the way around, right? So that will mean we have to bump it up 3 if we want 1.5 millimeters. So this should be at 33. Oops. And this is at 33. Okay. And the height, we want around 5. 5.63 is going to be pretty good. We might make it actually, yeah, we'll leave it at 5.63. And I'll explain why I had a little debating in my head right there. Because when we put this at the top here, we don't want it to be totally flush, because we want, actually, will that stick out? It won't matter. So what I was thinking was, irregardless, we'll just move on. Okay, sorry about that. So put this in here. We can actually just select the both of these, align it, do the top alignment, outside alignment, middle and middle rather. Okay, sorry, it's very early. See, it's 3:08 in the morning. Forgot to do this last night because I fell asleep with my kids. Okay, here we go. Getting ready. That's all set up. This top piece is going to need to be duplicated. So we'll remove this over to the side, and this will end up being our hole shape for our lid, right? This is ready to go. I'm going to duplicate from this base. I don't have to mess around with this. We're going to make this top lid 7 tall. If I want it to stick out, we're going to do, since these are sticking out 1.5 millimeters on each side, so we'd want probably an extra millimeter, so that's 2.5 on each side, which would make it 5 larger. So this is going to be 35 by 35. Okay, tall is 7. We are going to take this now, drop it down, move it in here, and since I have this at 5.63, I'm going to change it back to 5, because that debating that I had, I'm actually realizing if it's 5.63, but that won't give us a 2 millimeter lid thickness for all of our plastic. 2 millimeters is a nice diameter for what we have for our FlashForge Finder. It's not the best printer. It's a cheap $300 printer. I do recommend it if you want to buy one on Amazon. But it's not the most accurate when it gets to printing. So this top one, I'm going to also change to 5 because we want all of our stuff to be the same, right? So now I have to redo this. So no big deal. Align, top, right? It's still centered, so it's not that big of a deal. Now this one, oh, okay, just wait here. Now this one, I'm going to align again, right? Centered, centered, top, and it should cut out. I think we'll be okay. We'll see how it goes. What I was worried about, why I had the 5.63, is sometimes when you group these at the top, this lid won't screw on, but I think that it'll be okay, and we're just going to let it run with that. So this I'm going to group, okay? Now that my internet's goofy, so if we click off and we scroll in here, we can see that that has got looks pretty good. See, if I look around it, okay, so this is a good teaching moment. See this point right here? You should double check all of your projects. And so this is accurate. This is what was goofy. See this cut out there? I would not be able to screw this on here because there's a little bit of plastic that's going to be up here when we print these. So all I'm going to do is this. Screw, step back to there. I'm going to check this one, right? This is at 5. This one will be okay, right? So all I need to do really with this one, right, so that that sticks out a little bit, is if I raise this and this bottom point, I'm just going to make this at 5.25, right, the height of it. Then I can just come up here and align it. I don't want to mess with the height because I've set the height myself so that it sticks off. Wait a minute, it doesn't look like it did it. Okay, so we want to get this and drop this down the top of it. Okay, so if that's 2, we want this at 2.25. Aha, now this is bumped up, okay? We just want to make sure that we can just look and make sure that that tip should come out of there, which, man, that looks to be right there, right? So that one's coming out a little bit. I'm going to make this, I'm going to make it at 2.5 just to be sure that that's sticking up above there, right? And it is right there. You can see this is definitely cutting out now. So we should be golden, okay? Because that thread will cut us out good. And it'll still give us at least 2 rotations and we'll be okay. So I'm just going to double check, right, that it's still aligned, centered. Okay, we're good. So we can group this, okay? Now we just want to double check this piece. And since the outside diameter of this one is larger, right, so we don't have to worry about what we just talked about this not cutting out, because this is sticking out from that other cylinder. It's still golden. Okay, so now we have the lid. It's already got my threads cut out. This is cut out here. All right. So now we want to talk about how to make the whole shape of this pump. So what we want to do is this, we're going to duplicate. Okay, I'm going to move it a little bit to the side. If this is 30 by 30 and I want a 2 millimeter walls, floors, ceilings, everything's 2 millimeters. So I have to subtract 4 from this. So this is 26 by 26. Okay. I'm going to take it up off the bottom, 1, 2, and I'm going to make it just a little bit taller, and I'm going to make it a whole shape. And I'm just going to leave this in here for now, right? No big deal. And you'll see why I'm leaving it in here, because we want everything to cut out in one go. So now I want to come back to my basic shapes. Okay, I'm going to get a cylinder. I'm going to bump these sides up so I don't forget. I'm going to come down and we'll get a paraboloid. Okay, this is already as rounded as it can get. Okay, I want to make a cone so that this has a lot of space here. The water is going to get forced into there when we create the vacuum with our turbine spinning. So if this was 30 tall, I can leave this at 20. It'll be quite a good amount of space to come in. So I'm going to take this shape. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to raise this top one. We'll raise it 4. We'll make the bottom one hollow. Okay. They'll be aligned because we haven't moved it side to side. This one, okay, I'm going to raise up, well, first of all, we'll make the outside of this 14 by 14 because our vinyl tubing that we're going to use is 10 millimeters in diameter. So we're going to raise this up. You know, you want it to be embedded in there. So right at about 13, it looks like it embedded, you know, if we're zoomed in there, right? So there's the bottom of it looks out. If I'm at a better angle like this, you can see. And then it's now embedded in there. That'd be pretty good. It's actually at 14, right? So this piece, I'm going to duplicate. I'm going to raise one up, right? I'm going to make this is my 10 by 10 inside diameter, 10 by 10, okay? It's going to be a hole shape. I'm going to make it a lot bigger, okay? And this one, I'm going to, right, bring it down just so it's to at least there, okay? I move this to the side. So whenever I draw my box over all this stuff and I align it, it's not interfering with anything. We don't want to mess with the height because this stuff's all set up. And so we can make these, you know, if I make these transparent, I can see kind of where everything is cutting out, right? You can see that holes there. It's pretty good, actually. There's a little bump right there. And so if we were going to be really professional about this, we might want to get rid of that to decrease the flow rate over it, but we're in 8th grade. We're not going to worry about that. So I'm going to scroll back out. I want to leave this all grouped when I put it into here, right? So this is going to be grouped. I want it to go into the side of this. So I'm going to take this at a 90-degree angle, okay? And move this lid out of the way. Oops, I'm going to group this again. I'm going to move this into here, right? And see where it hits that. So now I want to make this so it's below my thread pattern, okay? Right about there is pretty good. So if this was my pump, right, I would, and this is going to be spinning, you know, if it's spinning in a clockwise rotation, we want it on this right side. So we want to make sure that this cutout goes through the wall. So I use my arrow keys for this, and it just bumps it in. And I want this edge to be into the wall embedded, right? Right to there. Maybe I would do one more. See that black goes away. I think right there will be okay, right? So right there is the pump. So this is coming out. We can also if we wanted to, take this. Remember, if you're on the inside here, it's every 22.5. Outside of this circle, it's to there. And we can play around with this. Maybe it would be right there. It would be probably fine. Okay. Now when this pump is spinning, that water is pushing around in a circle, and it'll want to come out there the easiest. Okay. So this is why we left this hole in there. So now we want to make sure that all these things are centered. So I want to just draw a line over the top of this and not hit these. These are set up. They're all centered still. They're good to go. And we should have done this before, but we can do it now. We just want to center and center, right? Okay. Now this is all centered. This stuff's all ready to go. It didn't move. Sometimes when you do that after, it'll move this bottom one. So you have to double check that it's all where it wants to be. Looks pretty good to me, so I'm just going to drag a box over all of it and group it. And wait until the internet catches up with what we were commanding it to do, as it's sending it back to the servers or wherever Autodesk is located. There's a lot of commands going on here, so there we go. So now we have this outside thread. That's good if we look inside of here, right? We've got a nice big opening for that water to jump into. So it cut a little bit out of my wall here, which I'm not super happy with, right? See that edge right here? That means that is going to be less than 2, quite a bit less actually. See that? We could get a box and hollow it out and cut that off, but all I need to do is this, right? Select this, ungroup it, right? I want to select just these all in one go so that they're all selected as one. So these are selected. I'm going to move them out, or in rather, 1 millimeter. So I know I'll have increased that by 1 millimeter. And then we'll see what happens by grouping it again. So when I spin this, right, it's still cutting out a little bit of the wall, but it's probably less than 1 millimeter. I would say that it's fine. If you are really particular, you could bump that out. We might be able to leave. We could also try this. Let's see if this would work. So if we ungroup this, right? If I move these to the side, okay, so move this to the side. I'm going to make sure that this is all aligned. Centered, group. So if we group this one first, and then we select these, right? And we put this over here. I don't think we can do this, because if I was going to select this other shape and then align it to the right side, we'll see what happens. See, it gets all goofy. It made these not centered, okay? So we want to step back and just have it there and use our space bar. Okay, so unclick. I want just these. If you're paying attention, you're actually learning a lot with me going back and forth, because I'm problem solving as I go. And what this class is all about, logic, reasoning, problem solving, okay? So I'm going to bump this in, okay? And I can kind of tell where it'll cut out maybe while it's open here instead. So this is kind of nice. So I'm going to bump this over. I'm going to look at it from this side. And so it's just cutting out a little bit right there, right? This is in here. This isn't too bad. But see, the reason why, let's move this forward. So that's okay. I would say that that's about as good as we're going to get right there. Okay, so it's not a huge cylinder that's cutting out of there. It's just a little bit, just giving us a little bit more surface area for that water to rush out of that tube. So this is the problem when you do it like this, right? If we group this now, what will happen is this will be in here, this white part in here, right? So what we want to do is we want to select this, ungroup it so that that internal tube cuts out, and now we're just going to group it all once more, and this is where we're going to leave it. Okay, I'm going to change this back, take it off of transparent. Okay, so that gets a little bit bigger here before it goes into that tube. It's not huge, but it's something. Something's better than nothing. So we could have bumped it out a little bit more and made it bigger. And you know what? This is going to be great. I don't want these all to look the same. I want you all to use your own best judgment and come up with what you think is going to be working best for your pump. So there's that. Here's our lid. Okay, now we want to be able to attach and cut out holes for the bottom for water to come through. So we just want a bunch of cylinders. I like things that are round. So we might make this, 5 by 5, just in case there's any little fishes that don't want to get cut up in there. So we want to put this in the middle. We want to make sure it goes through, right? Oops. So we're going to take this down so it's going through this pump, right? We can duplicate it. And then duplicate it again, right? Duplicate this one. So I would suggest not putting it in the middle, like leaving your middles open, because when we have this pen, we have the pen shaft, which we're going to use as our, whoops, I didn't duplicate it. As our, like a ballpoint pen shaft is going to be our, shaft that's going to attach to our turbine so our motor can stick out of the water. And you'll see that in class. But that's going to be pretty good. You can always drill more of these out with a hand drill. So we're just going to leave that like that. You want to get them as, evenly spaced as you think is good. It looks pretty good there. So I'm just going to group these. And that should cut holes out for the base. Because the pen tip will sit in the middle here and spin. And we found that the pen tips are 8.1 millimeters, right? So we're going to put this in the middle. We're going to make this nice and round. We're going to make this at 8.1. 8.1. Actually, we're going to make this at 9 because we don't want any friction in there. So that'll give us a 0.5 millimeter around it. So that's 9. That's 9, right? Because we found 8.1, it's very tight. So we're going to put this here. Drop this down. We just want to make that centered, grouped. So our shaft will come through there. Now we have to make our turbine, okay? We're going to get this. If our insert for our pen is 8.1, we want to add 4, so this is going to be a 12 by 12, right? 12 by 12, okay? This is going to be your discretion. But I think if this is 2, if the inside of this, right, if we cut this out, so it's 30 by 30, and we cut the inside out at 26, right, because of 2 millimeter walls, I would make this at 25 or 24 so that it fills up the whole space, but there's some room for it to spin around. So I'm going to make it 24 long, right? Okay, and that's going to look like this. And we can take that and duplicate it. If you wanted it to be, if you want to have a bunch of them in there, you could put it 45 and just duplicate it again. So there's a pile of them. I actually think that's going to be overkill. So I might just take this and duplicate it and spin it to 90, so I have 4 in there. But it's like I said, make 2 of them, make some round, make some have cups on them. But I think just that spinning should do pretty well. Now I'm just going to take this whole endeavor, centered, right? I forgot one more thing. We're going to duplicate this. We have to make our cutout for our pen. So we'll make this one a little bit taller and make this 8.1 by 8.1. Make it a whole shape. Okay, I'm going to make sure it cuts through, so I'm going to drop it down one. Centered, centered, grouped. That's cut out. The inside of this is 30 tall, so I would make this, we can just raise this up. We'll all say the same. I would make it, it's actually me 28 because there's a 2 millimeter bottom on it, right? So 28 would get us right up to the top of the lid. So we're going to drop this down 2, right? 26. You can try 27. We can always sand this stuff down and make it smaller, right? You just can't make things bigger. Like we can sand the inside of that a little bit with some files, but we can't make it bigger. So right there basically is all the stuff you need to 3D print. This will go inside there. The pen shaft will come down through here. We have to make a motor housing. Okay, so you'll have to take some calipers and measure our motors to make a motor housing, and you can design that however you want. You should be able to do that on your own. And I'll show you the example that I made in class that you can look at and replicate it if you're so inclined, but we should be good. And even if this part right here of where our threads on our lid, if these don't come in, whoops, right, this part right here, we can get a little file and we can file that out so it will thread on for sure. And that's it. We'll put this lid on, we'll put this in there, shaft through there, and this is going to run. This is going to be your pump. You'd be surprised how powerful this thing is going to be. It's pretty awesome. So we're going to make a mini aquaponics system. We're reverse engineering an aquaponics system that we've looked at in class. And you're golden. I hope this wasn't too long of a recording, and I apologize for the early morning foggy-headed explanations. And I'll see you in a couple hours.